story that many of us don't realize about Star Wars. And I'm so glad because I know some of you are big Star Wars fans in this room. This is great. So, we know it came out and it was like the second biggest grossing movie of all time. But before that, there was an idea that our friend George had, and nobody wanted it. He had this idea for this space opera, and nobody wanted it. Producers, studios, no. Finally, someone said yes, and it wasn't really because they thought the movie was a great idea, but it was by this time, see, he'd been trying to sell this even before American Graffiti came out. Finally, American Graffiti came out, the producer said, I think this movie is weird, but we like you, so we're going to invest in it because of you. But the budget was really low. George had to take a huge pay cut. And then they ran into weather problems and people getting hurt and all the stuff. They were like using old sets and props from other movies to be able to smash it all together. And then, another trouble here, another trouble here. Then the editing was a big kerfuffle. And that's a real word, kerfuffle. And then they put it out on the Wednesday before Memorial Day, which was kind of a bummer day. And it opened in less than 32 theaters when it first came out, that first week that it came out. And then opened in just several more. So it was about just under 40 theaters that it opened in that first week. And it made $2.5 million in 40 theaters in 1977 money, which is quite a lot. And then it was a smash. As soon as it opened, it was a smash hit, and it went, gangbusters crazy like it has for the last 41 years since. But it started with, the opening in 32 theaters is kind of like, well, we know this is going to be a flop, so we're just sort of like, right? That was what was happening, right? Until it actually showed up on the theater screen. And so I tell this story not just because we like Star Wars, which is true, but because it's a great story about believing in something and keeping and going and working hard on it and not giving up on it. Actually, George Lucas wanted the title, we all know what the title crawl with the words, it goes up like that, right? We all know what that looks like, right? He had to quit the directors union to be able to have it like that, because until that point you had to have credits at the beginning of your movie, and he didn't want to do it that way. That's kind of a big deal, right? you have to remember, he'd made one really well-renowned movie at this point. He wasn't a sure thing anymore. So, that's a good thing to remember when we feel like, wow, maybe I shouldn't go big. But then I think about this quote that you've probably heard from Marianne Williamson. I'm going to read it anyway, even though you've probably heard it. I just invite you to really, really hear it with your heart. Our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. It is our light, not our darkness, that most frightens us. We ask ourselves, who am I to be brilliant, gorgeous, talented, fabulous? Actually, who are you not to be? You are a child of God. Your playing small does not serve the world. There's nothing enlightened about shrinking so that other people won't feel insecure around you. We are meant to shine as children do. We are born to make manifest the glory of God that was within us. It is not just in some of us, it's in everyone. And as we let our own light shine, we unconsciously give other people permission to do the same. As we are liberated from our own fear, our presence automatically liberates others. There's some juicy stuff in there. Who are you to be brilliant, gorgeous, talented, fabulous? You're you. That's who. And so I think about, I don't remember when it was exactly when you first called me up and said, hey, I'm doing this tour. Can I come play at your church? And I was like, well, I'll look at your video. Check first. But why not, right? But like I think about the times when I've wanted to do the first time to do something and what that means to be an artist, whether it's a visual artist, a musician, or whatever, to be like, I feel like I'm good enough that I'm going to ask you to play my stuff, to show my stuff. It's a little nerve-wracking, right? I mean, you get in the habit of it, and you just do it, and you go with it, right? But the first time, the first 20 times, the first 40 times, whew, right? But who are you not to be to play that big? And you miss all the opportunities you don't try for. So why not? And so this whole idea of playing big and to lean into our potential shows up in a lot of different ways. It's saying, why not do the thing that scares me? Why not do the thing I don't know how to do? Many of you know I just finished my Big 12 Powers quilt, which is a big deal. And one of my aunts, actually it's funny because I have aunts on both sides of my family who are quilters, with capital Q. And she was like, I didn't know you quilted. I'm like, well, apparently I do. Like I just did it because it's the design I had in my head and I decided to do it. So I did it. And when I needed help, I asked for help. I phoned a friend and we figured it out. I just did it, It's amazing. Between your friends and the internet, you can figure out how to do pretty much anything, right? So you just do it because you're like, this is something I'm called to do, so you do it, right? And so I was thinking, something really fun, cool, awesome, I'm excited about it, that's happened in this last couple weeks. So many of you remember 2 years ago on Election Day, we had a vigil here, right? Nonpartisan, interfaith prayer vigil all day on Election Day. It was awesome. And so I said, that shouldn't be a one-time thing. And I was feeling kind of bummed because I'm going to be out of town on Election Day this year. I was like, So instead of just being like, oh well, so sad, I mentioned it to a couple of folks in some of the other groups that I am a part of here in Anchorage. And it looks like somebody is going to take up that and make it maybe the Interfaith Council, which would be awesome. It gets even bigger. Instead of just being like, oh, I can't do it, I guess I'll just go over here. I said, well, all I can do is share my idea and see. And then I said, well, it shouldn't just be that. So I went on to my minister group on Facebook, and I said, hey y'all, I did this thing 2 years ago, and I thought you might be interested in doing something like this too. So here's all the files from what I did 2 years ago, so they don't even have to recreate all the graphics and everything because I did it already. Here's all the stuff. And I've had at least 3 people show interest in doing a similar thing. Exciting! It is exciting because we're here to grow consciousness, right? That's what we've said our vision and mission is to grow the consciousness in the world. And so that's what we do. And we don't do that by hiding our light under the bushel, so to speak. We do it by saying, I I'm starting to get over it, but there's a time where I might have been like, well, I don't know if I want to share my idea. People might like criticize it or all. You know about the stories. I don't have to explain the stories. You all know how those stories happen and what they sound like and how they work. I'm guessing. But I was like, this is an important idea. It's a good idea. I'm going to share it with my colleagues, because if we're here to grow consciousness, not just here in our community or here in Anchorage, but in the world, then wouldn't it be great if some other unity churches or other denominations of churches started doing the same thing? What if we held the consciousness on election day of wisdom, of truth, of people finding the light and go ahead and making the best choices? What if we held that vision, not just here in Anchorage, but all over? That'd be a good thing, right? Yeah, well, it's not going to happen if I just don't say anything. Because I might have mentioned it way back 2 years ago, but nobody's going to remember that because we're all too darn busy to remember that, so I'm going to have to remind them that I had this really great idea. And right now, right after World Day of Prayer, when we're all high off of like, oh, all this prayer, yeah, this is a perfect time, right? So that's one way we look. So the only problem with using my phone for my thing is that it keeps timing out on me. Oh well. It's good because I didn't have any other notes to look at anyway. And so one more aspect of, so that's kind of like how I have stepped into doing something that maybe was, well, I mean, especially when we first did the vigil thing, I was uncomfortable, a little uncomfortable, but I knew it was the right thing to do, so I did it anyway, right? And so I was also thinking about a friend of mine that I was talking to recently who was running a meeting, and one of the people in the meeting was getting really on topic, going down a long twisty road that had nothing to do with the topic at hand, and sort of taking up all the time, and my friend, gently said, let's bring it back to the topic at hand. And really, she was talking to me because she's like, I don't know, was that the right thing to do? And did I do it right? I was like, well, you were asking people to stay within the parameters that were agreed upon. So yeah, I think that was the right thing to do. And sometimes you just got to put on, to do all the uncomfortable thing. Because this friend of mine is actively looking for ministry to serve, and hasn't served as the leader in a ministry before. And she's like, is that what it's like when you're the minister in charge? And I'm like, yeah, pretty much. You just got to put on your big girl pants and do it. This is pretty much what it's like. Sometimes you just have to do what you need to do. And so that's plain, because we see what happens when we play small. We end up running all over the place, chasing a whole bunch of things that really aren't ours to do because we think that that's what somebody expects of us, or that's whatever that needs to happen, and that doesn't get us anywhere. When we stand in our truth, we take time to pray and meditate and do our spiritual study and take the time. We know what's ours to do, right? And then we also know what's not ours to do. And so part of playing big is saying no. That can be a very hard thing to do. Say no. Nope, that's not mine to do. Sometimes it takes more bravery than doing the big thing, right? Because you don't want to let anybody down. But really, you're letting yourself down and everybody else down if you're doing something you really don't want to do. So, I know, see, here I go again, opening the thing. So Marianne says, when we let our own light shine, we unconsciously give other people permission to do the same. When we are liberated from our own fear, our presence automatically liberates others. So that's how we play big, right? When we let our own light shine, we are changing the consciousness of the world, and that's what we've decided we're here to do, and who we're here to be, and all of those things. So, I know, the tool comes back to prayer meditation, right? It's always what it always comes back to. We just know that that's true. But my consciousness, what do World Day of Prayer things say? Or the world peace in my life is my contribution to peace in the world. I didn't even know that was the affirmation today until you said that. So, there you go. Same thing. So, go out there and shine, play big, know what's yours to do, and that's all there is to do.